Rev up your engines!
The United States is denying Tesla tariff exemptions for his Tesla model parts. He made a big blowout deal with his original Tesla that he had the largest factory in North America that he built, that he's going to make all that stuff. And then what happened, the Model 3s kept dragging. They weren't making them. And then they finally said they're going to make them. They tried making them. The factory had so many glitches, they ended up building them in the parking lot in tents. So since then, he said he's building a factory in China to make them, which kind of, reneges on some of his ideas. An exemption on tariffs for certain of the Chinese-built Model 3 parts. The Model 3 is his lowest price ones. The U.S. is denying it. Well, I kind of agree with it, if you ask me, because trying to get this whole, I got this big factory in the United States, and then he's getting all this stuff from China that he's making in China and sending it over here. He's been trying to cut costs for his stuff like mad, because let's face it, the things are overpriced. The fancy ones are over $90,000. There's only so many people that are going to do it. And when he came out with his Model 3, all the people that were buying them, they were having to pay 40-something for the model that they were making. And so it wasn't even what he said, and the quality was garbage. When you're starting up a new thing and you're having problems with production and quality, starting to fire people and cutting costs of stuff, that doesn't sound like the right way to go about it myself. He's going to be in a bind as far as I'm concerned. All these companies are starting to make electric cars in China. Take Volvo. They're now a Chinese-owned company. They're coming out with an electric car soon. And they were pulling the same kind of nonsense. They said something like, it's going to be a $40,000 car or whatever, but then they're 1 year, the first year they come out, it's like a collector's item, and each one of those starts at $15,000 above whatever the list price was, so it's going to be a price thing. Not just, here's the electric technology. Electric cars are much simpler than gasoline and diesel cars. They don't have ignition systems, they don't have transmissions, they have battery, and they have electric motors that drive the wheels. They're much simpler vehicles, so anybody can create them that has the technology and build them rather quickly. The way the Chinese have gone, you just take a little bit of forecasting of the future, they're going to be making those things cheaper in China, and they're going to be able to undercut anybody. The fact that he's got a factory that he's making out there, and now he's trying to get a break on parts that are made in China that he's bringing into the United States, if they're going to put a tariff on the Chinese cars that they're going to be sending over here. They haven't sent them yet. That's something to come in the future. Who knows what will happen there. But you can't take the pieces of them and bring them over. Everybody's got to be treated fairly. And that thing, you can't give an exemption to one guy who at the same time is building a factory in China. I don't have any sympathy for somebody attempting to, bring stuff in and getting a sweetheart deal for his own when he's probably going to be moving a bunch of his production to China and the factories that he's going to be building there. It's still a futuristic thing. There's no infrastructure for it. It takes too long to recharge them. Like the video that I did a couple weeks ago on the Zero electric motorcycle that is made in California. The thing had a highway range at 60 miles an hour of only 55 miles before you ran out of electricity. These things still have a long way to go before they become accepted. You take where I live here in Houston. Sometimes we have brownouts in the summer because everybody's running their air conditioners. What if there was 3 million people recharging their cars at the same time? I mean, the grid just couldn't take it. That's just, I even talked to Canadian friends of mine, and they said the same thing. They said, our power grid couldn't take all these Canadians in Toronto if they all started plugging electric cars in. Power grid is made from decades ago, and it couldn't handle all this new input unless they're going to build the infrastructure up, and nobody's looking to building that infrastructure up the way our society's set up this today. Look at oil refineries in the United States. There hasn't been a new one built in decades and decades and decades because the new ones, they have to meet special anti-pollution specs. So they just keep fixing the old ones up. And here in Houston, outside in the outskirts, they're always having these fires all the time. And they're so old, things are always breaking. Those lines are corroded from the corrosive chemicals, but they're not going to build a new one because then they have to meet all these specifications that cost them so much money. They just keep running the old ones. And it's the same thing with electricity. I don't see anybody building any electric infrastructure all over the place. Nobody's spending money in this country on infrastructure. And if you add another layer on the electric infrastructure of all these electric cars that have to be recharged, things are going to have to be radically changed. And I don't see anything radically changed in the United States.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos,
Remember to ring that bell.